Welcome back to the county seat. We have covered so far in the show the river of money that flows through the county. But there's another revenue stream that's very important. It's the revenue that comes from recreational activity, from grazing, from leases that generate minerals. There's mineral extractions and other things that happen on the vast tracts of public land. Most people don't realize that only 1/3 of the state of Utah, approximately, is private land. The other 2/3 is public federal land. And each component of that federal land has its own set of rules and the way resources are handled. Those are all engaged in resource management plans. Now, they are supposed to last a long time. You come up with a resource management plan, you put it into effect, and it stays that way for a decade or so. And then you replan. Well, that's not the way it seems to be working right now, as environmental groups are challenging the most recent resource management plans, which are less than 2 years old, and they say they need to be scrapped and started all over again. Here with that report is Terry Wood.
It's a convoluted story, to be honest.
That is the reaction of Brian Hawthorne. He's a spokesman for the Blue Ribbon Coalition, which is a multiple land use access group, and he's talking about a recent Bureau of Land Management disclosure. The government agency that oversees public lands in the United States has revealed they are in private meetings with representatives of the Southern Utah Wilderness Alliance, a powerful environmental advocacy group, to discuss settlement of a lawsuit they brought against the BLM. The suit claims resource management plans that dictate public land uses like energy extraction and recreation were rushed through in the final hours of the Bush administration. That claim seems to have originated with the incoming Secretary of the Interior himself. Local leaders involved with those original plans find themselves suddenly on the defensive.
I was on the Resource Advisory Council of the BLM for 6 of those years, and I know the process we went through, how long it was, how we jumped through every hoop we needed to, and then the word came as they were signed and the new administration took over that they were rushed through at the last minute by the Bush administration. Well, if 7 years is rushing it through, then we're talking geological time. It's not the case. I mean, they were well thought out, they were well worked out, and now they're being negotiated to be changed.
These negotiations could lead to a complete overhaul or possibly several modifications of the Resource Management Plan, or what some call the RMPs. Local leaders feel there might not be any public input in the documents that dictate who, what, and how things happen on undedicated public lands.
Resource management plan is similar to a county development plan. Public lands are zoned into what's appropriate and what's not. Some areas will be zoned appropriate for motorized vehicles, some non-motorized.
FLPMA says that the federal government must be consistent with state and local plans.
According to the FLPMA, the BLM is supposed to work with official state and local government leaders in formulating and implementing the plans. According to county leaders, the actual legal stakeholders are not involved in these current discussions, but an environmental activist group is, based solely on their filing of a lawsuit.
The Southern Utah Wilderness Alliance and several other environmental groups decided to add claims to that lawsuit and decided they wanted the BLM to throw out 10 years of planning and close even more roads and trails. We've reviewed the claims and it's very dangerous, really.
According to Commissioner Gordon Topham, if the groups responsible for the lawsuit are meeting with the BLM, those meetings are going around stipulations in the Federal Lands Policy Management Act that lists states and counties as stakeholders, not private organizations. That fear is shared by other public land advocates as well, particularly those who worked on the original RMPs and feel they are correct and valid. Utah Director of the Bureau of Land Management, Juan Palma, wants to avoid any unnecessary speculation, however.
I realize that some of the viewers may have some concerns about discussions that we're having with plaintiffs about possible litigation settlement talks. But I want to be very clear. Bob Abbey and I are pretty firm that our resource management plans, our RMPs, will be in place and should be in place. So those are the conversations that we're having. I cannot comment on the specifics of the talks, but it definitely, again, is very premature for us to come to any conclusion that the RMP is going to be thrown out. That's not the case at all, and that's what I can comment on at this moment in time.
Compounding the problem is the December 23rd signing by Interior Secretary Ken Salazar of an executive order instructing the BLM field offices to manage lands they deem to have wilderness characteristics as wilderness without regard to congressional approval, as all other current designations must be handled. With the combination of the two announcements by the Secretary, state and local leaders are concerned that the net result could be devastating, cutting local economies off at the knees with the loss of mining, logging, agricultural, and recreational revenues generated by multiple-use land. Wilderness designation is considered by public land advocates to be the most severe form of land use restriction. Virtually nothing other than hiking and very limited grazing can take place in such an area.
Over 45% of BLM lands in Utah will be off limits to even mountain bikes. This is really an extreme vision of public land management, and we're fighting against it.
As we went through this process on these resource management plans, did we get everything we wanted? Absolutely not. We didn't. But we got what we felt like we could live with. And those that had stronger environmental concerns, they didn't get everything they wanted either. And I guess they can't live with what's there.
You know, at some point you ask yourself, well, you know, we could be compromised into extinction if this proceeds much further.
For the county seat, I'm Terry Wood.
Thanks, Terry, for that report. That really clears up a lot of the RMP issue, but we're going to continue the debate when we come back. Our guests will be Gordon Topham, Commissioner from Sevier County, Mark Ward, an attorney for the Utah Association of Counties, and Bill Ryan, who is in the oil industry and works as a consultant. We'll find out the impact these developments have on Utah's public lands.